I've been seeing some rumblings. I'm not sure. Maybe Jeffrey can answer this too, because he seems like he knows a lot about U.S. sort of things. That's the first thing. And the second thing was going to be about the proxies in Iran, not outside. The first thing was they're saying that there's rumblings that may be doing this as a strategic stop to it so he doesn't have to re-justify himself, give him an extension unofficially to continue on past the 60 days, because he's probably saying this is going to take a little bit longer. And so I'm just wondering if the thoughts on that. And then secondly, with the proxies in the country now, who's running them? Like the thing is, everything's so decentralized now that where everyone is, and these guys are running them like crazy in a Tehran and here and there, and taking all these stupid videos. Wondering like, okay, well, if this thing does happen, where Ghalibaf does kind of tactically retreat this way, what happens to these proxies?
Okay, that's a very good question. The first one was regarding President Trump. You're saying he may be doing this to what? Like I didn't wasn't clear to me the first question.
To get an extension for his time frame where he has the power to act or whatever, so he has like 60 to 90 days to get his troops out of there before having to go to Congress. But if he stops it,
Wow.
then what happens if he does the delay? Then he goes back in afterwards. Does that number reset?
I haven't heard that. My understanding is that that's not how it works. My understanding is that the benefit from this so-called ceasefire are first that there's two more ships that are it's going to get you time to for two more ships to arrive. The aircraft carrier airstrike carrier group, the what is it, the George
Bush
W.
and
Bush
Boxer.
one, and Boxer, yeah, and the Boxer has like a lot more Marines on it as well. That's smaller, but that's going to be adding to that as well. And then we also have the interceptors are going to be restocked. That's going to help with that. We also get the troops get to have some breathing room right now because they have been going through 40 days of intense operations. So that's going to give them some resting time. We also know that this whole negotiation is causing division among the Islamic Republic, so it's helping with that. Oh, also because if the negotiations fail, it shows that President Trump or also gives him more international legitimacy, giving that he tried negotiating, and if it fails, you could demonstrate that these people are just can't be talked to, negotiated with. And with regards to who is controlling the proxies, honestly, nobody knows. But if let's see if we can guess, right? So either I think if my best guess would be this guy Vahidi here, the head of the IRGC. Let me see if or maybe, Hossein Nejat might be like, I would say Hossein Nejat as the head of Sarullah, because, but maybe not because he is mainly responsible for securing Tehran. And we have seen some of these, we've seen the Zainabiyun proxies, Shia proxies of the Islamic Republic. We have seen them in Qom. And then we also have seen the Fatimiyun from Afghanistan. We have seen them in Mashhad. And I think Hossein Nejad his territory is mostly Tehran. It could also be Abdullahi, Sar Lashkar Abdullahi, the leader of Khatam al Anbiya. Where is he? Does anybody see him? Abdullahi. I don't know if he's here on this list. He should be somewhere on this list. I can't find him right now, but he is somewhere on this list. So Salashkar Abdullahi, the leader of Khatam al Anbiya, he might be the one who's doing this. It also, I don't know if it would be Radan. I know Radan is now in charge of security, but I don't know if he will have authority to do such a thing. So somebody who's paying them, somebody who's access, because Radan is supposed to take orders. I don't know. I don't think Radan will have access to the cash to be able to make that decision upon themselves. So I think it's somebody. My best guess is would be one of. Oh, there you go. No, no, that's not him. Where is Abdullahi? If
Nobody
he's
can
not on the
find
list,
anyone.
that's wait. I don't see him. He should be here. This is Safavi, Fadoi, Doran, Jezreel. Maybe he's right at the very top. Nope, I don't see him. If he's not on this list, the list is not complete because he's very important. Maybe he would be on the Security Council. Nope. Interesting. I'll find him. I know he must be somewhere here. But anyways, he might be as the leader of Khatam al Anbiya. He might be the guy as well. But we don't know. It's really hard to know. You
Well,
know who knows? Abdurrashid
my concern
bin
there
Saud.
is, sorry, my
Yeah.
concern there is, okay, so everything works out great, right? Like we're gonna go, this is gonna get done. We all want to go home and we want to see home again. But if these guys are still stuck as pockets inside Iran, and already they don't have enough communication internally to stop fighting, then at what point does this not just become an insurgency? Do you see what I mean? Like it's how do you control that without having the US troops or somebody else to coordinate and have to go in on the ground to eliminate these threats?
Honestly, I think if you stop cutting these people's funds, like if you stop paying them, they will go home. These are mercenaries. I think like this is why I mentioned a huge part of the this operation needs to be cutting the Islamic Republic's revenue, and this is why I said like we need to. So the way that I think that if I was in charge, this would be my strategy. Would be to liberate Bandar Abbas or a city another city close to the Strait of Hormuz. Use that as a base of operations to basically after I liberate that, I will then come announce to all of Iranian freedom fighters to come to the city to get vetted, get trained with how to use guns and drones. We get Ukrainians, the same type of Ukrainian soldiers that trained opposition to Assad in Syria, and they were very effective at bringing down Assad in Syria, to do something very similar in Bandar Abbas to train the Iranian people who have already been vetted with using drone technology, using those Ukrainian soldiers, train them with guns, train them with drones, to then start expanding their geographical control from that city, go past that point, and then keep expanding their control over that area. And then by doing that, the Islamic Republic will lose control over the Strait of Hormuz because as that army expands, as that Iranian army expands, then the range of the missiles, the short-term range missiles, will not be able to, and the drones will not be able to threaten the ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. And this will have a double benefit effect. First, you're empowering the Iranian people to liberate themselves, but then by the Americans will be able to easily control the Strait of Hormuz after that, because the Islamic Republic will lose control over it, and then you will cut the revenue from the Islamic Republic. And if you cut it, like the same thing that the Islamic Republic did on Strait of Hormuz, now Americans could do with ease in the Strait of Hormuz, not letting the Islamic Republic sell its own oil, or even if it does, you could just capture it for yourself to fund your military operations, and then that way you will cut the revenue of the Islamic Republic. And then once that money dries up and you don't have the money to pay the mercenaries, they will just go home automatically. You don't even need to hunt them down. Well, at least not yet, because once we free Iran, we will need to go and find these people and hunt them down wherever they're hiding once Iran is free, because these Shia proxy groups were responsible for killing tens of thousands of Iranian people in early January. So we can't let that go. But right now, we don't need to hunt them down. We need to just cut the source of their funding. Does that make sense?
And we have to liberate the port cities for first. The cash flow is the one thing, but for me it's just, it's the scariest part is because if they start getting embedded similar to what's, especially with, how territorial integrity and everything else is important to Iranians, as it should be, we have a tendency to like have this weird thinking that I think that these guys are going to go. Hopefully they do. I mean, like they don't have funding, they want to leave, but the countries they're coming from, even without money in Iran, Iran's a better place to be in. So I mean, they can figure it out and try to regroup and then come back at everybody the same way that the insurgency is still kind of going on in Syria now. And I just, the bloodshed is terrible, and I really wish the Iraqi Kurds didn't steal the guns, because at this point, who knows where we would have been. But at the same time, it's just it's how do you fight back an enemy you can't see anymore? You know what I mean? Without international help, and then with the hypocrisy of the media saying, "Well, we don't want boots on the ground." Well, there is boots on the ground from the other side. Now you have objections, so it's weird, you know.
Yeah, honestly, when it comes to the first, it's not. Let's not tell them to call them the Kurds, because let's call them separatist groups, because I don't want to group them in with the Iranian Kurds, right?
100%.
So yeah, yeah. So honestly don't know what anybody expected. Like Because if anybody knows anything about these separatist core groups, they know that they are very, very anti-Iranian. They're not anti-Islamic Republic. They're anti-Iranian. So the idea of like, hey, give these weapons to your enemy, like if give those weapons, asking them to give them to the Iranian people is basically asking them to arm your enemy. So I mean, like, why would they do that? So they're not going to
Well,
do that.
I feel like
So
Trump
that's
has this mentality, and listen, I'm not saying I'm pro or anti or this and that, but he's grateful for all the help and support from America and Israel and everything else like that. But I feel like Trump may have had that idea of the Venezuelan model of trying to find someone reasonable inside and all that other stuff, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. He was thinking that they wanted to be separatists and maybe they can help us. That's what I think his mentality was. He even says
well, he
himself,
said.
he says
Well,
he
he
was.
said. He said he said, I mean, I don't know if you could believe it or not, but he said that he thought that was a bad idea, but but his commanders were telling him that this is a good idea, so they just went with that.
I
And he
might
said
turn that on
he
its
said
head there, to be honest, because I think the commanders would probably see that the threat, because his commanders, this is what they do. I think had it worked, he would have taken credit for it too. I mean, like anybody would. But that being said, now that it's failed, what happens
I
now
don't
on
know.
that border?
Yeah, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised about sometimes people high up making bad decisions, because if you actually go read the history, like I know like the CIA and Mossad, these are like, and other parts of the US and Israeli intelligence are the best in the world. They're the best in the world, right?
Mhm.
But if you actually read the history, they sometimes make mistakes, like really bad mistakes. Like they're not flawless, right? So they sometimes make mistakes that you look at it and you're like, what the hell? Right? So
Yeah,
so they're the best, but the best doesn't mean that all their decisions are on point. Like if you just go, like if you read the history of the CIA, sometimes you're like, you start scratching your head, like what the hell were you thinking then? But
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
right. So
Yeah, 100%.
but yeah, they make the best decisions compared to everyone else, but there are times, right?
Yeah, 100%. I
uh,
agree.
yeah.
All right. Well,
Mm.
thank you very much.
But by the way, I found him. He was right here. Like, how did I not see that? He was right under Vahidi. I'm like, where's
Oh,
Abdullahi? Is right here. Look at him. I was like, why
oh,
is he not on the list? He's right here. So the way I found him is I went and searched his name and looked at his, like how he looks like, and then I looked for this big bald head and I'm like, oh, there he is. So it's easier to find faces than names. But again, he's very important. I think he's guys, the most from the remaining parts of the Islamic Republic, there are here the four that are the most important. Vahidi as the head of IRGC, Abdullahi as the head of the Khatam al Anbiya, Raudan as the main head of the security for, like, as sorry, the anti-riot management, anti-protest management, right? And then obviously Ghalibaf. Okay, so these are right now the four most important people within the Islamic Republic.
I am first on the response list, and I am curious, how come there were only like three Zabibas in that whole picture of guys?
Three what?
Zabibas,
The-
the little like prayer foreheads. How come nobody has those? Aren't these supposed to be like highly
oh,
religious great men? They don't have any Zabibas.
oh, you're right. You're right. Oh, okay. So Vahidi has it. You're talking about this mark on the forehead.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he has that. This guy has it. So guys, if you don't know this, it's like you could virtue signal that you pray a lot by having this on your forehead. If it's like a little bit darker, that's a sign that you pray a lot in Shia Islam, because you put your forehead on this thing that is called mohr, and that means that you pray for hours and hours and hours, and it gets darker. And I kid you not, some of these people, they go and they on purpose, they don't pray, they go and pick them more and they rub it on their forehead so that they could get their forehead darker, to basically virtue signal that there's somebody who prays a lot. And guys, to get it that dark, that means like like if they genuinely were praying that much, to get it this dark, that means that you're basically praying with your head on this thing on the ground. What is sajda in English? When you go basically bow down with your head on the floor. And for you have to basically be in that prayer position for hours and hours and hours for this to get that dark. That's like so much wasted hours. the understanding is in Iran that most of them don't actually pray that long. They actually just rub it on their head to get that marking, to look that they're virtuous. But good catch. Yeah, most of them don't have it.
So they're all fake.
But
It's like a nipple or an elbow. You know, the skin's just a little tough.
We call it
okay,
prostrate.
okay. Prostrate, yes.
No, it's like, you know, your elbow, it's like darker and it's a little tough. Like that's their forehead. Okay,
Yeah,
next,
yeah,
those
exactly.
Jeffrey.
Real quick, so I'm going to go over some of the quick points. A lot of points were brought up really good. One, with regards to Guy's statement of arming the resistance, that timetable very much was upset because of the Chinese Communist Party providing material support to the Mullah regime, particularly increasing the quantity and quality of their ballistic missile force, and they were getting ready to mass launch on Israel, our bases in Gulf states. We had to go in at that time. As far as the interstate conflict in Iran, because we had to target a lot of the regime leadership to further paralyze their activity. And so I can't pronounce his name. It's like 15 syllables long. That's my feeling, not yours, sir. It very much looks like, or, having lack of command and control. So you have this intrastate conflict going on inside Iran. It's starting to look more and more like the sectarian violence in the Syrian intrastate war, not a civil war, too many foreign fighters involved, which actually makes it even more rhyme even more with insecurity flows coming into Iran. This is also why it's good to have regime elements fight each other, because it thins out the bench and or active belligerents in theater, which means that it makes it easier for us to target who's the bad guy, right? Separate who's the bad guys from good guys, at least, potentially. As far as President Trump arming Kurdish separatists, President Trump said arming Kurdish separatists was a bad idea. He did not say arming Iranians was a bad idea. He's very much for arming Iranians. The argument used by some to arm the separatists was the idea that they already have experience in fighting guerrilla warfare. Hence, ostensibly, you would have anti-mil elements fighting against the regime remnants sooner. The only thing a lot of other people like, because that's a lot of risk there, that's why we, like people like me and others, like, nope, we need to sit there and train elements within the broader Iranian diaspora to do those kinds of things and then send them in so they can sit there and, clean out the regime remnants there. I just want to go through that very quickly to kind of help give people some tools they may use to thinking about that. As far as the nipple on the forehead thing, I got to tell you guys, every day I learn something new about Iranian culture when I come here.
It's not Iranian culture. It's anti-Iranian culture.